All right, we're going to get into the naval news segment now. Let's begin with the Fleet and Maritime Tracker. Once a week, USNI news updates where our fleets are around the globe. And this week, this is where we are. We have the Carl Vinson is in the Pacific transiting, going towards Japan. So they're going to be over here, we expect, next week. They had been doing weeks and weeks of workup off the coast of San Diego, doing some live fire exercises and really getting ready to deploy. Well, that deployment begins now, and they're on their way to it. The Abraham Lincoln in Tripoli, they're pulling into San Diego. So those guys are coming back from wherever, I guess they were over in off the coast of Japan for a while. In the Atlantic, we have a lot of ships in the Atlantic right now. Gerald R. Ford is out there still doing, wrapping up her sea trials. She is due to pull in for a maintenance period. She's probably already pulled in. This is from the 9th, which is like two days ago. And the Harry S. Truman and the Kearsarge are now out. So I assume that they're going to be transiting towards the Mediterranean. We'll know that destination next week. We tend to know their destinations a week after they get there. That way there's no operational security violations when we talk about these. So just keep in mind that these are just general deployment areas, and then I'm speculating as to where they're going. I don't know. I have no inside information on this. But the Ronald Reagan and the Iwo Jima, they've been off the coast now for over a month, supporting our withdrawal from Afghanistan, which is nearly complete. We're finally getting out of that country. It'd be nice if we got out of more countries, but we're getting out. At least we're getting out of that one. That's a start. And the American Amphibious Ready Group is in Guam with the Queen Elizabeth. That's right. The Queen Elizabeth, the ship, the aircraft carrier, is in Guam as well. So we're going to go over the fleet this week. We're back down to 296 ships. We've been at 296 for 2 weeks now. We expect to commission an Arleigh Burke, I think, by the end of the year. So we're going to come back to 297 at one point. But we're also decommissioning a second LCS before the end of the year. So even though we're commissioning another ship, we're going to lose another one. So we're going to stay right around 296 for the foreseeable future. Remember, the Biden administration, our current president administration, their goal is to build up to 330 ships. So we got to start building them faster than we're decommissioning them by about 35 ships. All right, let's start with the North Arabian Sea. This is the Ronald Reagan Group with the Iwo Jima. This is inside the forecastle. That's the forward part of the aircraft carrier. You can see the big anchor chain right there. That's what gives it away, 2 of them. And here we have Chief Bosun's Mate Talitha Miller, that's over here on the right, is speaking to Royal Australian Air Force Air Commodore Nathan Christie, Combined Air Operations Center, or CAOC Director, in the forecastle of the Ronald Reagan. So they're having a little meet and greet there. Imagine being on a ship where it is so big that you have to tour certain areas just to meet different parts of the crew. I mean, coming from a submarine life, that is unheard of. If you want to meet the crew, you go to crew's mess. Everybody goes through crew's mess at some point, right? Or if you want to have training, you have one place to do it all. But I imagine on an aircraft carrier, you have 4,000 to 5,000 souls on that thing. That's a lot of people. There's probably, other than the flight deck or the hangar, no place to get everybody together. I imagine. I don't know. So I imagine this gentleman from Australia is going around meeting the American crew, which is really cool that he's even on board. That's awesome. We've been doing a lot of operations recently with the Australians and the other nations in that area. They have Carrier Air Wing 5 on board. So if you have family members from Carrier Air Wing 5, that's where they are. Maybe you might know some of these gentlemen right here. They're watching a trap of a E2C Hawkeye right here. Looks like you got the number 2 wire, because you can see number 1 wire there. This is 2. Ideally, you want to catch 3, which would be over here. But notice how everybody's behind the safety line here. Yeah, like everything that you do on an aircraft carrier flight deck is choreographed like a dance. You stand in certain areas at certain times depending on what's going on. And everybody knows exactly where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, day or night, rain or shine, no matter what. Because even if you can't see and it's so loud you can't hear shit, you could easily get hurt or even killed on this thing by propellers, jet wash, you name it. There's so many sources of injury on board a flight deck, it's insane. So everybody on board here knows exactly where they're supposed to be. And it's a very choreographed event. If you've ever seen flight operations, it's very cool to watch. Also very dangerous. Got to give those guys a lot of credit for that. They risk it all every time they go out on the flight deck there. Here's Destroyer Squadron 15. These are the destroyers that are with the Ronald Reagan right now. This one is the Halsey. As you can tell, she's been at sea for a few months. She's showing the signs of it, which is perfectly fine. This means we're using our ships. But whenever she gets back to port, the deck div's got a lot of work to do, get this rust off. So Destroyer Squadron 15 is based out of Yokosuka, Japan, and embarked with the 7th Fleet specified escorts. Yeah, the Halsey. Oh, the Halsey's out of Pearl. Oh, okay. So the Ronald Reagan is out of Japan. I know that. But I guess Halsey came over from Pearl to deploy with her. In the Gulf of Oman, that's very close to that. A Harrier here attached to Marine Medium Tilt Rotor Squadron, or VMM, 162 reinforced. Takes off from a flight deck of the Wasp. That's really cool. You can see a little bit of blur, so there's some forward momentum going on here. It must be doing like a short run takeoff. Love the Harrier. Beautiful plane. Let's see, the Wasp is out with the Harper's Ferry and the San Antonio. Those 3 ships usually, or 3 ships like them, not necessarily those 3 ships, will deploy together. So you have an LHD with an LPD and an LSD. So you've got the full amphibious support for any amphibious operation altogether. So they'll typically steam together with escorts. And let's move on to Guam. Here is the beautiful Queen Elizabeth here, the dual island aircraft carrier, the UK made. I believe they're making another one of these. Check and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're going to make 2 total. And she's big. Look how big she is compared to all these. These are line handlers down here. They look like civilian contractor line handlers. And they're just dwarfed by this massive machine. I love seeing stuff like this. It's so great. These machines are so big and complex. The fact that they even work is mind-boggling. Yeah. All right, here we have the Royal Australian Navy frigate HMAS Ballarat. That must be this one, because this is an aircraft carrier. Receives fuel from amphibious ship USS America. That's something else. Not only do we have the supplier and support ships, merchant marines that can reinforce or refuel our ships with supplies, often our carriers can do the same thing. And this is an example of an aircraft carrier sending fuel to one of its escorts. Very cool. So if you lose the support ship at sea in, say, a battle, you don't necessarily have to pull back in right away to get more fuel or get another supply ship. You can use the aircraft carrier, because the aircraft carrier obviously has huge fuel stores for jet fuel, diesel fuel, you name it. It's got it all, even the nuclear ones. Talisman Sabre, that's the name of the multinational field exercise that we had talked about to death. We're not going to cover it again. But those ships that were participating in that are still at sea. That's why it's mentioned here. In the Eastern Pacific, so the Carl Vinson leaves San Diego to go on patrol here. Let's see all the sailors in their dress whites manning the rails. Very customary to do that. Every time, let's say you're in port and a ship is going to sea like this, you always sound your whistle for them, and you stand at attention as they pass by. I don't remember if you salute, but you definitely stand at attention as they go by. That's the custom. Here we have for Carrier Air Wing 2, which is attached to the Carl Vinson. So the way it used to be, and it looks like it may be different now because they have a plane on board, but it used to be the aircraft carrier would go to sea, and then the next day the Air Wing would arrive. If anyone knows how that's done now, let's put it in the chat. But it looks like they're going to sea with at least some of the aircraft already on board. So my information's probably a little bit old there. They got the Argonauts, that's VFA 147, the Bounty Hunters, the Stingers. So if you have family in any of these guys are going to sea right now. This is a cool picture. This is called the bullnose. Whenever we run a line through this is usually to keep tension on the pier on like a spring line to keep us from going back and forth. So what you'll do is you'll run a big 3-inch line through this over to the pier. And because it looks like a bull's nose, we call this the bull nose. But it's a pretty cool frame of the frigate in the background there. I really, really like that. These guys are getting creative. Who took this picture? I wonder if it's credited to anyone. U.S. Navy photo. Yeah, too bad they don't credit the photographer. But they centered that nicely. Even the horizon is centered. Good job. A lot of detail in that picture you can easily overlook if you don't pay attention to it. All right, here's the Abraham Lincoln returning home after a long overseas deployment. That's almost looks like Coronado Island. Let's see if it says what it is. Naval Air Station North Island. Okay. Lincoln returns upon completion of her scheduled underway. These guys have been at sea for a while. Good for them making it home safely, and awesome. And we talked about this story a little bit last week. This is the Gerald R. Ford finishing up its sea trials. There we have the 40,000 ton. That's right. Or no, 40,000 pound rather. 40,000 pound underwater explosion for shock testing. They did 3 of these at 3 different ranges, each one walking them in, but each one is 40,000 pounds. So it's a lot of explosives there. The fish love it, by the way. They don't mind that at all. Nope, no fish were harmed in getting our fleet ready. All right, let's see what chat says. There are going to be 2 Prince of Wales. Thank you. Yep. Prince of Wales is the name of the second one. What do I think of the British shipbuilders? I think they build great ships. Britain in general, going back to sails and wooden ships and iron men, have a reputation of building outstanding ships. I think that's without question. Tyrepo says, WarZone noted that the carrier air wings on board the Vinson and other carriers while pierside. So yeah, they were already on board pierside because you wouldn't normally trap in port. So they must have got the air wing or maintained the air wing on board the Carl Vinson after they were done with their workup, pulled into San Diego to top off stores and whatever, spend one last night at home, and then deploy. They just apparently left the airplanes on board. Nothing wrong with that. Oh, that's right. And they're deploying with the F-35s. Great point there, J4. And some of those have the VTOL capability. Yeah. I don't think all the V-35s have VTOL capability, but I know some of them do. Everybody stands at attention. Only officers salute. Is that the custom? Yeah, I should remember that, but I honestly don't. But I remember some of them going to sea and they're very slow sometimes. And you're like standing there at attention and it's not always warm outside in Groton. And you're like, hurry up, get in so I can get down below where it's warm. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Let's talk about China. So China challenge placing pressure on internal behavior. So this is a great article. I gotta give a lot of credit to John Grady over at USNI News. I disagree with him on a few things, but me and John agree with this. And we have the Pentagon. This angry guy right here, he has a reason to be mad, is we're not preparing ourselves for what is clearly going to be a war with China. Every indication we have right now, unless something drastic happens in the next few years, is we're going to unfortunately be in a shooting war with China. I'm really sorry to say that. I don't want to be right, but even he agrees with me. So don't take my word for it. The Joint Chiefs of Staff are waving the freaking flag saying, we are not ready for this. We need to prepare now. That's what this article is about. And so the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Staff Army General Mark A. Milley, he's got 2 L's, so it's Milley, testifies before the House Appropriations Committee Defense for fiscal year 2022, the next budget. He says we need more money. And I know, I don't want to go about, it's not about wasting money, which we do, but let's talk about this first. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff says China is coming at us rapidly economically, diplomatically, militarily, and that challenge is putting existing international behavior under tremendous stress. That's a great statement. He could be talking about any of the last 4 presidents, by the way, whenever he makes that statement. So this is not political at all. This is a blanket statement that is accurate. Every single cent spent in the U.S. military is spent to preserve peace, the general says. He added that more than $700 billion budget requested for fiscal year 2022 means having a military ready now and modernized for the future. So what we've been doing on the Navy side of things is decommissioning ships now so that we can have the Constellation frigate and more capable ships by 2023, 24 maybe. But there's that 2-year gap where we are making ourselves less ready now to be more ready in a couple years. This is a very dangerous time because this is a window of opportunity for China to become very aggressive. And we are not in a capable state to take action as we were, say, even a year ago. Now, That's a whole nother topic. We're not going to get into that. He continues to say the Senate Armed Service Committee added more than $25 billion to the budget. We've talked a lot about where this money will go, including building an additional Arleigh Burke destroyer. That's very important. We're decommissioning the Ticonderogas, about a third of them, the older ones. That's freeing up some money with this money to build the Constellation-class frigate and hypersonic weapon development. We're very far behind in long-range fires. Whenever I say long-range fires, part of that is hypersonic glide weapons. Okay? The general added, what is happening now reflected a new age of threat brought on by the convergence of new technologies. This is the most important thing of the article. He cited artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, 3D printing, biotechnology, and long-range fires available in every nation over the next decade are examples of how new technology can be used to have an immediate impact or in the future. And he compares this to Germany in the interwar years. In the 1920s, 1930s, between World War I and World War II, Germany used these new technologies of the time, which were tanks or mobile warfare coordinated with aircraft and radio together. They integrated that into their military before anybody else did in Europe anyway. And they had a real tactical advantage when they invaded Poland and eventually spread out across Europe. We're seeing the exact same thing happen again, which is terrifying to me, but it's true. So we have to face the reality here that the technologies of this century are artificial intelligence and 3D printing and bioweapons and hypersonic weapons that China has now. China has an operational hypersonic weapon. They are leaps and bounds ahead of us in terms of deploying these technologies. We have fallen behind, and he's pointing this out to Congress. Thank God. It's not just me on Twitch telling you. This is so important. But you guys need to know too, especially if you're in the United States, hell, if you're anywhere. But you need to know that this is going on, and this is our Joint Chiefs of Staff saying this, not just me. We've been beating this drum forever. All of the combined changes changed the fundamental character of war, Milley says. The result was Germany overran Western Europe in 18 months. China can overrun the Pacific Rim in much less time than that, if we let them. Milley says another lesson would be to draw down the 20th century is how unprepared the United States was to enter the two world wars, and it cost American lives. He's right. Only in both those world wars, we had time to get ready. Pearl Harbor aside, we had time to build up our fleet, salvage the fleet from Pearl Harbor, and get into the fight with Japan. We got a little bit lucky at Midway, and we never stopped pushing after that. Little World War II summary. If China hits us hard first and maintains the pressure, and we don't have the allies in place, specifically like the UK and France, that would be two big navies we'd love to have with us. We may not get this opportunity to have 18 months like we had in World War II to respond and get into like a D-Day scenario where we can actually push back against China. If China can hold what it takes where Japan could not, it's over. They're going to maintain their gains. Okay, that's a lot of my opinion, by the way, in that. Milley says that the need now is not numbers, but a different set of capabilities. We must shift spending priorities now from legacy systems that this has been a tough sell on Capitol Hill. The Navy has received criticism from lawmakers over its plan to retire the Ticonderoga class and Aegis class cruisers to apply the money to future systems. Yeah, we're retiring approximately 1/3 of our Ticonderoga. I think eventually they're going to get all of them, but 1/3 right now are on the chopping block. That's a lot of ships. That's a lot of capability going away. But it also shows how out of date even the Aegis system is. How far behind we are whenever our most capable cruiser can't get in a fight and win with today's warfare with China. Okay, citing his parents' service in the Navy in World War II, his father was a corpsman in the 4th Marine Division, and his mother was a wave assigned to the Seattle Hospital. He said, the United States is indeed a maritime nation. Exercising sea control and power projection will continue to be. Okay, so he's trying to get... Well, he got more money than he was asking for, but he puts a really good message out there. All right, now I'm going to read the chat up here, see what you guys have to say about this. The U.S. though, has rail guns. I don't think the rail guns, I still don't think that they work. But it's funny that you say that. I know that they're trying to get them to work. All right. But as far as I know, they still don't work. CK says, my only thing in China literally has no allies, as we have most of the Pacific Rim. That's the one big benefit that we do have is if we work together with India, Japan, Vietnam, the Philippines, Australia, of course, and even, yes, Russia, we can strangle China and keep them from expanding. But bringing Russia on board is probably not on the table at this point. Okay, Death on High says the U.S. Army also needs to have LSVs and the General Frank Benson class logistic support vehicles. That's a very good point. I remember you telling me about that a few years ago, where there's a Gator Navy in the Army of support logistic vehicles, ships, essentially, that I wasn't even aware of. Yeah, we need more of those. China and Russia are doing EW drills. I'm not surprised, because that is a scary prospect to have those two working together. I mean, let's look at the geography of this situation that you bring up. If they are working together, let's take a look at the map here. So obviously this is China, and Taiwan's a big part of this conflict right now. They have good relations with North Korea. You know, we have troops and stuff in Japan, Philippines, Vietnam, India. We're becoming really close with India now. But if China and Russia work together, they can become China by itself right now, I would say, is a dominant regional power. As long as she doesn't have a unified force against her, she definitely reigns supreme in this area. But if they work with Russia, what a pairing that would be. That would be good for both of those countries. China and Russia signing a serious defensive pact with each other would make a lot of sense to me. And I don't know what the consequences of that would be, but it wouldn't be good for us. I wouldn't imagine. So I'm not surprised to hear that they're working together. Well, I'll see what else you guys have. China has claimed land in Philippines, Japan, and Russia. Yeah, I'm not surprised. China's making a lot of claims. They can't really back them up, but what they are doing, at least in the South China Sea area, they're building these bases down here. So even though, say, part of the Paracel Islands that Vietnam claims, China put an airstrip on one of them and put some military guys there and be like, hey, it belongs to us now. That's literally the level of land grabbing is going on by China. That's the level of aggression I'm talking about trying to push back against without going to war. Like, how do you do this without going to war? I don't know. That's why the general's like, hey, we got to get ready. I think the general's right, and I don't see how we stop it. I don't know. It's terrifying. I don't think it's a good idea.